Hi everyone, my name is Crystal and I'm making this video to share my story about being unable to make breast milk, which is sometimes called lactation failure. When this happened to me 3 years ago, I was completely blindsided and traumatized by the experience. As day after day went by and my breast milk never came in, I was completely filled with panic, guilt, shame, and this helplessness that was debilitating. I had every intention of breastfeeding. I read all the books, talked to my doctors, bought a breast pump, but was never made aware that this was a real possibility. Even when I left the hospital after 4 days with my baby girl and I'd had to start feeding her formula, all the medical professionals told me, "Don't worry, your breast milk will come in. Just keep putting your daughter to the breast and pumping," which I did. By day 7, I was in full panic mode, and I called one of my OBs who simply said, "Well, some mothers just don't make breast milk. It's nothing to feel guilty about." My daughter's pediatrician was much more helpful, and she helped me rule out the more well-known causes, which are excessive loss of blood during delivery, leftover placenta in the uterus, and some thyroid conditions. But after that, she could really only recommend the herbal supplement fenugreek, which I took, and it produced a very tiny amount of breast milk, no more than an ounce when I pumped. So my husband and I were left to scour the internet and read breastfeeding books, and we hired 2 lactation consultants, one of which left me with reading materials that stated, "If you don't breastfeed your baby, she won't be as smart as she could have been." We rented a hospital-grade breast pump, and I pumped religiously every 2 to 3 hours with no change. Finally, I was referred to Dr. Mona Gabay, who's an MD that specializes exclusively in breastfeeding. Her last name is Gabbay, and her website is thebreastfeedingdoctor.com. So she suspected I had a low level of prolactin, which is the hormone that stimulates breast milk production. And she took a blood sample, which later confirmed my prolactin was way too low. Now, she also suspected that the cause of this was that I had elevated prolactin in my non-pregnant life, which I knew was true from some pre-pregnancy testing that was done by my OB. So some symptoms of this would be irregular menstrual cycles, which I did have. So my OB tested it twice. It was elevated both times, but he only told me that it might affect my ability to conceive. So this connection isn't fully understood yet because it needs to be researched more. But the theory is that when you have an elevated prolactin in your non-pregnant life, your body essentially knows it's not pregnant, and so the receptors sort of hide or they're not expressed. And this basically means that the brain to body mechanism is simply disconnected. So finally, I had an answer, and I was able to calm down and really make peace with the fact that I wasn't going to be able to breastfeed. Now, I've since done a lot of research on this, and I learned that my lactation failure could have been predicted if my prolactin had been tested in my 3rd trimester to see if it was in the normal range. And at that point, it should be 150 to 250 micrograms per liter. So I could have at least been prepared for this instead of completely blindsided by it. So I'm now strenuously promoting that all obstetricians ask their 3rd trimester patients a simple question: are you planning on breastfeeding, and would you like to have your prolactin tested to see if it's in the normal range? This would give women the opportunity to know in advance. So I've learned a lot from this experience, and here's what I really want to say. To all the mothers out there who are going through what I went through, you are not alone. You don't have to feel ashamed that you're formula feeding your baby. My daughter is a very bright, very healthy 3-year-old that I can barely keep up with. And my only regret is that I spent the first month of her life in turmoil and strapped to a breast pump. And to all the breastfeeding advocates out there, from writers and editors to La Leche League to the US Department of Health, breastfeeding is being heavily promoted and studied, which is great, but the issues surrounding its failure are not. And the impact of that is that women like me are left to feel like we're simply not trying hard enough. And to all the doctors, pregnant women, and women trying to conceive, Test prolactin levels before you get pregnant to see if it's slightly elevated, and then again in your third trimester to see if it's in that normal range. So thank you for listening. I'm going to put some links on this page to a couple of articles from doctors as well as Dr. Gabay's website. And my hope is that by sharing my story, I can at least help one woman out there. Thanks. Bye.